What's something you thought you'd never do that you found out is actually really enjoyable? Running. I used to hate it, but now I find it incredibly therapeutic and a great way to clear my head. Gardening. I was raised a city kid. Rented a house for a bit in a neighborhood where people took real pride in their yards, so out of respect, I tried to spruce the yard up a bit with plants. Very little in life has such solace and reward. Not everything you plant works out, but it's peaceful digging the hole and putting it in the ground, and months later, if it lives and blooms, you know you did that. You made that happen. And every spring that flower will return and brighten your day, and you know that you put it there and it lived. Give up drinking. It wasn't easy, but goddamn are my weeks, nights and days better without alcohol. Dancing madly at concert. Back in high school, I had a friend who was incredibly shy and quiet. He'd hang out with me and my friends, but he wouldn't ever really do anything. He'd just hang with us a bit before going home. I figured he was just a super introvert who preferred to just stay home. End of year comes around and we all go to the prom. He goes alone because he was too shy to ask a girl, but that wasn't too abnormal, as a lot of my friends ended up going alone to just hang with the rest of the guys. We get to the prom, and as we're all hanging out and having fun, out of nowhere, my shy and quiet friend gets pulled by a girl to dance. He looked frightened to go dance, but I think he was even more scared to say no to the girl, and so he reluctantly got dragged to the dance floor. I smiled and turned away to go talk to some friends, and when I looked back a few minutes later I saw that kid just acting his ass off. He was smiling bigger than I'd ever seen him smile, and he just completely let go of his inhibitions and just danced. I couldn't believe it. He was having so much fun that it didn't matter if he wasn't that great of a dancer. His joy was infectious, and it was like a movie trope where the entire school ended up circling him and cheering him on. It was incredible. Growing my own vegetables. Saves money and tastes better than the grocery store produce, especially the tomatoes. Driving a school bus for a living. I swore it was the one job I'd never do. Now I'm 5 years in and, as far as jobs go, I find it extremely rewarding and pretty fun. What is something that you really enjoy about your job? I love watching the sunrise on a quiet bus, getting to know my students, the split shift where I'm able to just chill between routes. Most of my coworkers are laid back and a joy to work with. It's a lot more relaxing than I imagined it would be. Karaoke. Growing up I thought it looked stupid for people to sing songs badly in front of others. Then I moved to Japan for work, and my first night out we went to a bar with karaoke, and I had some of the most fun I've ever had. Basket weaving. I was at a medieval market and some guy sat there doing a presentation of it and letting people have a go. I tried it too and enjoyed it greatly. The repetitiveness of the work really lets you unwind and relax your mind. Also, decorative baskets make for a nice addition to a present, but that's not the topic. Being openly honest about my feelings, insecurities, faults, etc., in somewhat of a humorous, self-deprecating way. I found out that when you're open about those things that others will almost immediately start agreeing and opening up themselves about the same issues. I learned that I'm not nearly as alone as I thought I was, and most of those feelings are pretty common among other people. It's quite liberating. Therapy. I was very anti-medication and anti-therapy. I heard people complaining about ADHD this and depression that, and assumed they were just lazy people or people using a diagnosis to get attention. Then I started having serious anxiety problems. I brute forced my way through it for 3 years until I almost ran off the road during a random panic attack. Got into therapy and started improving after a few months. At my psych and PCP's recommendation, I was prescribed some medication for if a panic attack comes. Just having the medicine as a safety chute, coupled with continued therapy, has almost completely rid me of panic attacks. I now am working on undiagnosed ADHD and depression that I had for years but just assumed was something everyone dealt with. Never thought I'd be here, but boy do I feel better, and have a whole new perspective on other folks as well. Learning a new language. Public speaking. I used to hate it, but now I find it exhilarating. Meditating. I was convinced I could not shut off my brain. It's still a challenge. But just sitting quietly with my thoughts for 10 or 15 minutes really does remind me that whatever's weighing heavily on my mind really isn't that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. Birdwatching. Weightlifting. Who knew taking out my anger on some heavy barbells would make me feel excellent? keep my weight low, make me strong looking, and give me a place and activity to hang with my friends that wasn't a bar? Going hiking. I thought it'd be boring, but it's actually so refreshing and fun. Totally changed my view. Shooting a gun. I don't think I'll ever own one, but I went to a shooting range in Vegas for a bachelorette and it was so freaking fun. Reading. I'm visually inspired and I really hated trying to push myself to build up reading stamina growing up. But now I really love reading things and learning. I also count books on tape as reading, but I still do a fair amount of visual reading. Once my eyes get strained or too tired after working all day, book on tape is really nice to keep going. Bowling by myself. One day I went on my day off and it was actually pretty fun. I told the worker afterwards that it was oddly therapeutic and he responded with something like, "That's what bowling's all about, kid." Something I thought I'd never enjoy is bodyweight exercises and outdoor workouts. I always associated fitness with going to the gym, using machines, and lifting weights. But I discovered how much I enjoy the simplicity and versatility of exercises like push-ups, squats, lunges, and planks. Doing them in a park or even at home feels refreshing, and I don't feel the same dread that sometimes comes with heading to the gym. There's also the joy of getting outside for activities like hiking, biking, or even interval training. These activities help build strength and cardio without the confines of a gym. Going to a theme park alone. I live in the land of theme parks, and I've always thought when I saw people by themselves at one, poor thing has no friends. I am extremely extroverted, so going out alone always seems sad or boring. Then one day my coworker said he'd love to get an annual pass to Universal and just go by himself and walk around with headphones. Again I thought, how sad. But then, one day I was feeling very mopey because it was my dead brother's birthday, and I decided to go to Animal Kingdom by myself. My brother loved animals more than anything and he would have loved that park. We were always too poor to go growing up. I didn't know if I'd cry or how I would feel, and I didn't want to subject any of my friends to that. So I went alone. I took headphones. I did cry a little. But I ended up having a really good time. Then I started going to all the parks alone. I would listen to music, read a book, chat with strangers. Drink, people watch. Do whatever I wanted. If I wanted to sit and look at tigers for an hour, I did. It was very freeing. As I said, I'm a people person, so when I go with my friends, I'm always happy doing whatever the group wants to do. I never assert my wants because I'm happy if everybody's happy. But going and doing whatever you want is actually amazing. Take notes while reading in a composition notebook while seated at a library. I've discovered my lifelong interest. Fishing, lol. My wife and I got a pair of rod and reels last month and I'm hooked, pun intended. We're queer women living in a large US city, so not exactly the usual demographic. As a tennis player, I always hated pickleball, and sought to never play it because it was just worse tennis. Played with a friend though, it's fun. My bad pickleball lovers. Cooking meals at home. Not only do I get to do something, but my finances have almost completely rebounded. Training a puppy. It's been so much fun and so rewarding that I'm considering taking courses to get certified. Yard work. I used to watch my parents do it and they always seemed to take a lot of pride in it. I never wanted to help them because it seemed dirty and boring and hard. Now that I'm an adult with a home I love, I take so much pride in keeping the front and backyard looking crispy. It's a great way to get outside, build some muscle, and have something beautiful to show for it. Going to the movies and restaurants solo. I call it me days and absolutely love every minute of it. Waking up early is just as good, if not better, than staying up late. Sure, it might feel good to stay in bed longer, but it feels as if the days last much more. Dunking myself into the freezing cold pool after going in the hot pool at the volcanic spring spa, then repeating that a few times. I discovered that it feels amazing. Pole dance. I was such a tomboy growing up and had a real problem with the thought of my body existing primarily for men's approval or arousal. It was hard for me to even start wearing makeup, skirts and dresses in my 20s. But I had heard about the local pole fit studio and it sounded intriguing, that I watched that amazing Netflix documentary, Strip Down, Rise Up, which really highlighted for me the fact that your sexuality and sexiness can be entirely for yourself. Even more mind-blowing, that there's a whole realm of pole that is not about becoming a professional stripper, not that I have anything against people who take that route, but simply about the pure physical and acrobatic challenges. A girlfriend casually mentioned that she wanted to try the introductory class but needed people to come with her so she wouldn't feel shy. She ended up doing one class and I've been doing it religiously every single week, plus open studio practices, for about 7 or 8 months now. I can't even believe how satisfying it is to learn each new move. I'm so proud of how strong I'm getting. I'm even, at 40 years old, finally comfortable with the thought that I can be sexy for my own amusement, and that sexiness can come from my strength just as much as it can come from walking around with one's butt sticking out. Bar work. Swore I would hate it, got my first bar job at 23 and it was one of my favorite jobs. I'd happily own my own bar if I could afford it. Surprisingly, knitting. I do have some old-fashioned hobbies, but I never thought that I would actually like it. I learned the basics, and ever since then it has been a way for me to de-stress. I'm not the best, but it makes me happy, and I have been able to make gifts too. Building Legos. Got a set for Christmas, and in the span of almost a year, built up a collection.